Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on Sunday, 28 November 2021, session Global Technopolitics Forums Research Groups meeting. So this week, I think since it's just three of us, I was going to discuss Eduardo's upcoming paper, but since he's not here, maybe we just could continue discussing China paper or Puran. If there's anything you want to discuss, we can start with that.
Thank you very much, Pari. I have some positive update, which I would like to share with you and Greg. The first update is that of the list that I had shared with you, I'm now taking that list one by one with people. So that, now you know about the list, you have permitted me to go ahead and do it. So now I'm writing to these people and trying to bring them on the same page. And so we will have our first collaboration with one of the European think tanks, which is led by a leading economist in Croatia. He is also a professor of economics in Zagreb University in Croatia. And he's also the part of the banking system because he also sits on one of the committees in Croatia. So somebody who is a nice person, economist, that also helps us to find our footprint in Europe. And then he has also set up a think tank called Center for Economic Diplomacy. And he's the president of that Center for Economic Diplomacy in Croatia. So he got back to me today. He says that, look, I'm fine. So I'll be writing a connecting mail by tomorrow.
Well, sounds very good. Thank you.
Yeah. So I connect him with you and then we take it forward. But you could probably deem it as done, but we will follow process and I know the person pretty well. He knows me pretty well, so we will be all on the same page. So this is the one. Second one is
Puran, may I interrupt you? Are we thinking about a webinar with him?
We can take any issue with this person. Very nice person. He'll be open on everything, and we can talk to him about webinar. We can talk to him about joint studies. We could probably talk about all the things, Pari, which we talked, maybe joint research, grant writing, proposal. And I also had in my mind when we talked last time about how to really expand on our footprint in Asia, Africa, and Europe. I think he could be one person that we could also latch on to him. To have him on one of our webinars from Europe. And he, in turn, could mobilize people because he's also the part of academic ecosystem in Europe. So when we do something with him, we will also be able to secure a fairly decent number of people, including students, academic, think tankers, to come and be the part of it. So we can talk to him anything under the sun.
Great. Thank you very much. Sounds very good.
Second one, Pari, is that there is, again, a think tank called International Center for Circular Economy. That was also given the go-ahead to me by you and Greg. So they're also very fine, and they will also be coming in contact with you. So I'll be writing a connecting mail both to these two organizations, and they will also be very happy to undertake anything and everything that we could really offer these people. So that they're all good people. We need like-minded people, probably more than anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much. And also, Puran, I'd like you to know that you're welcome whenever you're ready to have your own webinar. So like what Eduardo is doing. Whenever you feel you're ready, you're welcome to,
Yes.
let me know so we can launch that.
Certainly, Pari. And another little update is that there is a new series called World Sustainability Series being started by Springer Nature in Europe. And that series is being led again by Walter Liel, who is a professor in one of the German academies, and he also teaches in UK. So he is the editor of that volume, and he has agreed, and it has been now written back to me that they'll be happy if I write on a theme which is, of course, related to UBI, where it'll be like UBI as a pivot to combating poverty in Asia. And then I'm talking about digital economy and its implications on democracy. So it has been agreed, and I will start writing about this particular chapter, which will, of course, take some time, but it has been, and they have contracted me to write. So it is more or less, agreed. I'm beginning to write about it. So I'll be very happy to keep you updated on this part as well. And finally, I'm close to completing that chapter which I had sent to you, and you had advised me to weave it in the context of COP26, which I'm doing. So shortly, maybe in the next week itself, I'll be able to send it down to you.
Thank you very much. Sounds very good. Greg, any comment?
No, that all sounds great. I'd be interested in reactions from both of you. Later this week, I'm giving a little presentation, pretty informal presentation, I think, at the RAND Corporation for their graduate students and their graduate student alums. I'm going to, I think, mostly talk about my experiences trying to think about the future inside and outside government, tell some anecdotes, but then also, I think, want some commentary on Biden foreign policy. I'd be interested in what both of you, how would you say at this point about Biden and U.S. foreign policy?
It's an excellent thing, Greg. And what I could also probably say that in India, there are many academic institutes, universities, think tanks, which would be very happy if we could probably, given your time and their time, we could probably have you as one of the speakers for their student community, faculty community, and we can probably open it up, and this way we can also take the brand far and wide in India. So please consider it. And I think many of these academic institutions teaching political science, international affairs, and such subjects should be very, very happy to have someone speak to their student community, faculty community. So I think that would be another way that we could probably look at it. So we could probably have you speak on some predetermined topic, then we could have Pari to do it. So I think we could probably expand our reach in a much quicker and in a more meaningful manner as well. So please consider it, and I'll be very happy to, talk to people, and they'll be only very, very happy to have both of you speak on predetermined subject, and then they can run it on their Google, Facebook, and so on and so on forth. So that could be another thing that you can consider.
That sounds good. Yeah, and indeed, one of the very first speaking tours I took outside the United States was to India. That's probably now 40 years ago, maybe. It's a long time ago, but it was a wonderful trip.
Yeah. So in relation to Biden's foreign policy, one thing I would say is, to my surprise, I don't see huge differences between policies with previous administration. So that's something which strikes me a bit, especially when it comes to China. But that's kind of feels a bit I don't know, disappointing, I would say. But then again, it's not one-sided. China has been very aggressive. China has shown signs of really, I thought China would be with open arms comes towards Biden, and they didn't do that. So I feel that China's strategy is to continue to use United States as a way of, sort of nationalizing general public. So we cannot put all the blame on them. And I think the same happened with Iran. So I think a wider kind of a strategy has been formed. And so I think that's one aspect. The other aspect, the other aspect I would think about Biden is also the problems that Trump has left behind when it comes to Europe. So I think I have heard it myself from European questioning reliability of this administration. When the minute the administration change, agreements could change. So now the legacy of Trump's administration is tendency of others not to trust the United States, so regardless of what Biden does. So on the other hand, his hands are tied, both when it comes to China and Russia and Iran, something beyond his grip has happened. And when it comes to Europe, Europe had decided that they should be more independent. I think it's the problem that he's facing. So a lot of issues in foreign policies beyond his a sort of authority, I suppose, because of what happened over the last few years and what is unfolding basically in US scene.
That's very helpful. Thank you. That's great. I'll certainly make those points. I think it is striking that there's been, in some ways, much more continuity than any of us expected. Partly that was the growing difficulty between the United States and China. Partly it was the difficulty of doing things like re-entering TPP, which would be an obvious thing to do, but trade agreements have become sort of dirty words across all the political parties here in the United States, which is a shame. So you're right, there has been more continuity. And as you say, the Chinese have not exactly been helpful. You would have thought that they would have more eagerly embraced Biden, I think. On the Europeans, I think you're right there too. It's, everybody knows we're only one election away from a return to Trump or something like it. And so that does make it hard to so trust. And sometimes I get the feeling that the administration, which is, as you know, all friends of mine, basically still thinks it's 1992. Well, 1992 is a long time ago. And this isn't 1992, and the kinds of assumptions of American leadership that were easy in 1992 are not the same right now. And so that's for me a big difference as well. But thank you. It was great. Thank you.
Welcome. The other thing I want to share with you two is that in my further studies of China, the crisis we see right now, it seems major crises are actually self-inflicted. For example, the property market bubble, the tech giant crackdown, and also the water shortage. So it seems to be part of a policy by China that is trying to fix some structural problems. So it's prepared to take the pain on a short period of time in order to resolve something bigger, to prevent the crisis that maybe Japan had it in 90s. So I think that's another area to realize that perhaps their movements are more strategic and long-term, which is the benefit of an authoritarian regime that could act in long-term planning. So that's something increasingly I'm coming to conclusion that, perhaps crises are self-inflicted purposefully for better gain or long-term gain. Any comments?
Well, as we've said often, it's easy to see China as a great success, and so far it has been a great success, but it has such big underlying problems. I was thinking about, if you look at resource endowments, can't remember the exact numbers, what it has 4 or 5 times the population of the United States and about a third the arable land. So it does have some resource and other shortages, and exactly why they've inflicted these recent wounds is not entirely clear to me. It seems like it has to be seen in the light of next year's party Congress and Xi's eagerness for a third term, but it's not entirely clear to me how some of those actions help him. This doesn't seem like a time to be cracking down on entrepreneurs, though that's been a theme throughout recent Chinese history. But still, this is a time when you ought to be fostering entrepreneurship, not clamping down on it.
I think the property market, from what I read, and still I like to continue my research, it seems the property market issue is about shifting economy reliance on loans and debt to a more healthier economy. In terms of tech giant, I think it's a signal to the society that we won't tolerate the income gap, and also the community at large also concerns about some of the concerns that we have here about the control of tech giant of the information and data.
Sure, yeah.
So I think that's area is that. So there are values, and of course we know that she is very focused on controlling the society. So I think his election next year, all of that matters. So I think it's a combination, but it seems there's some structural fixing going on as well. Of course, it's such an opaque society that we never really know what's going on there. Everything we read is filtered through certain channels. So it's very hard to know really what's going on.
Yeah.
Quran, any comment?
Absolutely, Pari. I have got 3-4 points to sort of. The way I have dealt with Chinese, both in Europe, also in Asia and elsewhere, they play the mind game. And that mind game is that whenever they want something deeper to do it only when there's some problem beneath, which is their own society, community, people, freedom. And what they do is they open up a couple of fronts, economic, psychological, trade, and then they try and confuse people around, governments around, and then they keep on ticking the box. But which are the kind of areas which they could probably leverage in a way that others will not be able to see them through? Because, once you do 50 things, people are confused, which way the Chinese is going to go. And they do not really open up their mind. They do not really open up their heart until the last minute.
Right.
This is the one thing which I have seen in Chinese in general.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Yeah,
me too.
Yeah. So,
my experience is exactly the same.
Very difficult. And reading the mind, because, their language is not English. They have not been, I'm saying it in a general term. Most of the Chinese have not been exposed to Western world values, liberal things. So they are, living within their own society, thinking that, whoever they are, whatever they are doing, that's the kind of bottom line. So Chinese are ignorant people. And then on the top of all, these communist party people, they play the game which nobody knows what they're doing. So it is pretty hard to read the mind, read their heart. They can never become a friend to you. They will tell anything at the last minute. So this is the problem number one, which they link with value, Confucius, value and all of that. So it becomes quite complicated. So this is the part one. Part two is that they have always fought transatlantic war. And that you could probably date back to, 100 of years back. And they try and do one thing with the Europe, keeping the US in the dark and vice versa. And then they create the kind of problem which Europe and US will try and get entangled. And Chinese then keep on winning whatever they want to win. So transatlantic and then European thing, they try and mix and merge and try and pit the Europeans against the Americans and vice versa. This is what I have seen. So this is the part two. Part three, what they have been doing, is they are trying now to do away with bilateral things. Multilateralism, they are just saying is of no use. And then they are putting the question mark on institutions like the UN and so on and so on forth. Now what they're trying to do is they're experimenting with an idea called omnilateralism. I have been talking to some people in Europe and elsewhere. Everything to me looks like the Chinese are now taking up an agenda which is bigger than multilateralism. And that agenda is omnilateralism, where they are beginning to talk about global governance, not by two people, not by many people together, but everyone into it to be able to set, a global agenda, which means beyond the agenda which was set by Congress of Vienna, which was basically, based on the premise and the principle of sovereign states. So they say there is nothing like sovereign. The states are all, dysfunctional entities. And Chinese will like to now set an agenda, which would be global governance agenda, which is what? 5G, trade, multilateral systems. So they're trying to destroy it and try to build this whole notion of omnilateralism and declare to the world that Chinese are proponents of this omnilateralism. These are the three things which I feel are going to be, something which we could probably watch out. And then Indo-Pacific and what they're doing in Asia and so on and so on forth, because they earlier thought that they could lead Asia any which way. But they found it pretty hard, and they're trying to see to it how it all goes. My worry is that every democracy will need to come together and try and see that they do not really do anything harmful, both to Hong Kong and also to Taiwan.
Yeah.
If they could do it, then they could psychologically defeat democracies and also build an ecosystem whereby they have another narrative that democracies are good for nothing. That's my concern. So we will have to really watch it out, but that's my overall reading about Chinese. And two things have happened of late. Solomon Islands, if you look at what is happening there, the proximity of Solomon Island Prime Minister to Chinese is creating a lot of problem with the public there. So there is demonstration, arson, looting, and Australians have sent their army to quell the domestic problem which Solomon Island has. And then if you really look at the development cooperation model, they make countries wherever they go bankrupt. And Ugandan airport, is the latest. They had given some money to build Ugandan airport, which has failed to pay up the debt to the Chinese. And now Chinese are taking over. Of course, they do it everywhere they go. But the latest is Solomon Island and Ugandan airport, which Chinese are going to take over and convert that into some kind of strategic asset. So they do it, and therefore we have to really keep on reading these guys. He's a very interesting character, but very hard to be read out.
That's really interesting stuff, Purana. In one sense, the whole idea of omnilateralism is not a bad idea. It's the question of how it gets implemented, what set of values and what implications, as you say, for democracy and also for geopolitics. But the idea that we somehow do need to move beyond our existing notions of multilateralism, I think that's exactly right. But it's all a matter of how it gets done.
And what kind of values are injected into
embodied
that.
Absolutely.
And that's how they have actually forced themselves into the United Nations. So that's another area to watch for, because China has gained a lot of power and influence there. But sadly, especially in technology, it's pushing towards techno-authoritarian, which is quite concerning. And a lot of standards and things are moving that side. So yeah, I think nobody has problem with the concept. It's a matter of how it's going to be implemented and what kind of values it's going to be injected there. And certainly China is not trusted by guiding or leading.
But I have heard that they're trying to destroy UN now. Because people in the UN, of course, the country, sovereign states, are not very happy with the Chinese. And they're also not very happy with everybody else. So now they're trying to, the Chinese are the masters of the game, where they will try and put something parallel to something else. I'm hearing that they're now trying to grill a big hole in the UN and try and project something else using this whole idea and principle of omnilateralism, which they will tell the world the Chinese were the ones who did it. And they have put some people to do research where in Europe, they have given a lot of money to some of these universities in Europe, including some in Germany, where these guys are trying to do some research, which is, civilizational power, which is being led by a couple of people, which I am planning to have a con call with one of the professors who is an Indian. She was associate professor in MIT. She just moved to Berlin, and she is now she will be one of the profs to get into that research, which is being funded by the Chinese. But I'm going to talk to her on 30th, which is just 2 days away, because she wanted me to sort of say a few things about omnilateralism and, civilizational power and structure and so on and so forth. So we are talking to each other on 30th, and Chinese are funding. I mean, this is what I'm told. The study is being funded by Chinese, and they are trying to build philosophical foundations around omnilateralism, Greg. And it all goes back to Germany again. And my MPhil thesis was on Immanuel Kant's Perpetual Peace.
Right.
And I know Kant was the person who, for the first time ever, talked about and wrote about omnilateralism. It goes back to 1797, when he talked about science of right. And it was contained in the second volume of Metaphysics of Morals, where he talks about omnilateralism and which all areas could be covered within it. And then he says cultural things. He says minority issues. He says environmental governance. He talks about technology during those periods. So there's a lot which is happening underneath, and Chinese are putting a lot of money. This is what I said a couple of weeks back as well. They are putting a lot of money in universities and no longer in Confucius centers, because they know they're already under surveillance. So they're trying to bypass Confucius centers and put that money into academic systems, because academic people will always have creative liberty to do whatever they want to do. And under that garb, they do the things they feel like. So that's the thing which is happening now.
Yeah. There is a discussion also happening on IGF, Internet Governance Foundation, which is the arm of United Nations that deals with internet governance. And right now there's a very hot debate and disagreement within it that is also encouraging a lot of people to boycott it, which is very concerning. It's happening right now. So a lot of things happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if China is behind what is happening there as well. Anyway, it's fascinating. Yeah, Greg, please.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's great. That's all that's fascinating, and very good grist for our mill for sure.
So and also, Puran, we look forward to hear your report on what's your conversation on 30s.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Pari, absolutely. And if you permit me, I could probably talk to these profs when I talk to them on 30th. I'm talking to one person. She's an Indian lady, was in MIT, and now she has shifted to Germany. And she is one of the persons who would be getting involved into that civilizational power research project. So if you ask me, I could probably say that we could probably have, in a roundabout way, talk about the forum and possibility of something together. I mean, if you are happy, I'll be happy to do it. So let me know.
Yeah, that'd be great. Sounds
Okay.
great.
Yeah. So I think we discussed things we wanted to discuss. Is there any comment from anybody? No? In this case, I just want to remind you, Puran and Greg, that next week Eduardo is presenting his work. I am going to share his slide with you, Puran, so we will have some interesting questions. Feel free to invite others. They need registration in order to join. So feel free to do that. It's posted on our website as well. And yeah, so I look forward to that. And meanwhile, look forward to hear about your reports and wish everybody a wonderful week ahead.
Yeah, good week, everybody. Take care. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.